today with Eleanor Freedman. We're so excited that she's joining us today to tell us about her husband Gordon's factory that he brought here to Charlevoix and when she first came to Charlevoix.
Hi.
Hi.
I came with my husband, and I'm going to cry. Why do that? Anyway, his dream was to be here, and so he used to come here with his family and be on the lake in the summer, since he was 6 months old, so that was a long time. Anyway, and I had never been up here much more than visiting once or twice other people, so I thought that'd be an experience, and it really was. And it's beautiful, and it still is. In fact, the town, unbelievably, is more beautiful than it was.
That's neat.
It hasn't lost anything. I don't think. We came here in the late summer. He came earlier, late '45. And to move his factory, we would have to do that from Cincinnati. At that time, he was producing propellers for the Navy, and he himself had invented a propeller for small planes, but that was long gone because now they were big propellers. And so he moved his factory up here, and it was quite a thing to do, but it was the end of the production on his part, and it was difficult to find a place for the factory, and he rented little buildings that were available around the south side, and needed an office space, and which was not available, and the Central Drugstore downtown was owned by, and is still owned by, the son of Harley Oaks. And they were lovely residential people. And he offered his upper floor for the whole office, and that was so nice. And his son and daughter-in-law are still part of the drugstore. And so that was the beginning of meeting lovely people.
Now, he moved here mainly because he just had grown up here during the
Just
summers?
wanted to eat it up.
Yeah.
Loved it, and that was it. And I think this is a lot of cases. They're like there are retired summer people that don't wait to be retired, but start commuting. You know, it's such a, it even smells good. You know, it's not the gas and the exhaust, and it's just a different, it's beautiful. All this whole country is just like Massachusetts and all the upper states with the clean, pure stuff. Anyway, so that's what we did, and I'm looking at these because I don't know what I'm going to tell you next.
Well, tell us a little bit about where the factory was located.
Oh, on the airport.
Okay.
And that was quite a trial because the city didn't want him to build, didn't want to give him permission. It was, he would be the first industrial plant in the city. But because of the type of industry, it would not be a negative thing. And it was quite a lot of convincing. And it finally got built on the side of the airport. It has been replaced and resold to a wonderful factory, and it's that beautiful building that now exists on the airport.
The Harbor Industry Building.
Yes, and you just can't beat that.
No.
So what did he start out, what was built in the factory originally?
Pardon?
What was in the factory originally?
Oh.
What type of products and those kind of things?
Oh, what he made?
Yeah.
Well, after he finished, he
propellers.
got through with the propeller industry. It was a hunt and search for what to do with a woodworking factory, because all those propellers were wooden, and of course that phased out a long time ago. So he ended up producing fixtures that were freestanding, but were, let's see, I made a note here. They moved, so they were called freestanding, like for Talon Zipper, for Singer Sewing Machine, for all the greeting card companies, except, of course, Hallmark. They are still within their own and beautiful. And he shipped them all over the world. And it became, at one point in time, he had about 200 people there, which is the factory that's there now is also having that many people according to what you produce is what you get, and that's a beautiful factory now, and it was too in its time. And what else?
How did you feel as a young mother bringing
Lost.
children up here?
I had a brand new baby, and when you're young, you're ready for it. It's an experience, and it was fun. I was a city girl only because I lived in the city, and but I was rip-roaring to go, and people were great. I was invited into clubs before they even saw me, because my husband was involved.
That's neat.
You know, that's what happens in a small town. And at that time, there was, other than a boat industry on down at Ferry Avenue, we had nothing industrial in the town, and still, excuse me, still no industrial plant in town,
Right.
which is what it is. And had 3 children. They all went through school here and then flew off to college, and still can't wait to come back.
Right.
And what else may I tell you? Let's see.
Well, what organizations were your favorite ones to be a part of, that you were a part of?
Well, we
Volunteer?
were all together, and there were not many civic organizations. There were none in town.
Okay.
And Gordon was invited by the state to be a part of forming the community chest,
Okay.
which hadn't been, which then was followed not by he himself, everyone got involved. The Red Cross, but we never had anything like that, which was interesting. And then we built Mount McSaba ski hill,
Okay.
and that was exciting. And I was just telling someone last night, I still have. It's so. I always want to throw it out, and I think, I shouldn't do that. It's fun. When they were going to build Mount McSaba, we all bought stock in it. Somebody had to help, and everybody in town helped. And I still have that,
You still
that
have your
stock
stock?
paper. Now it's got 2 rope tows, one for little people, one for tall ones. And now they have an ice rink, which is lovely.
Yeah,
So the community is just been really wonderful in every way that I can think to tell you.
When I spoke with you on the phone, you mentioned that there was Wayne Belding his grandfather had a store.
On the corner. Do you remember that?
Can you tell us a little bit about
Well,
that store?
you know, the town, no town looks like they used to.
Right.
Well, at the very far end of the block that the bridge starts from the south side or north side, on the south side, at the edge where the bridge was, is where were rows of many little stores. And I was new here, and I was always attracted to anything miniature or anything antique, and this is what I loved. And I walked in the store one day, and I'll never forget the first time. I couldn't believe the things that were in there. They should be in museums. They were Indian artifacts. They were everything from a postcard to a feathered piece. It was just unbelievable. But his children, his one son in particular, was quite an artist, and but that was a family that had lived here for a long time. There were not very many stores like that, but that just absolutely blew my mind. It was, and this is Indian country, so at that time nobody thought anything of it.
Right.
It was just the way that you collected stuff. It was fun.
Oh. And you yourself had your own antique store. You
And
did
I
Tin
was
Lady.
a tin lady.
And where was that store?
The Tin Lady, well, do you know where Don's Market is?
Yes.
Okay. Next to it, where that nice little engineering building is, everything is what used to be. Was a little red house that was adorable, built for commercial use, and it was a jewelry shop, and had a fireplace in the middle. It was just perfect. It was, however, empty. So my husband knew I was getting fidgety after the kids were pretty well organized, and I'd done every club I could in town. And yeah, so I said, okay, I'll do so. He said he would foot me to the start of it. I said, okay, but I'll tell you, I don't want much, and I want to pay you back, okay? So I did, and it was wonderful taking sabbaticals and leaving the house to collect antiques, because at that time, it wasn't the thing
Yeah,
to be antiquing in this neck of the woods.
yeah.
So that was fun to do, and I was soon joined by a very good friend to be a partner.
Okay.
And then the sabbaticals were even more fun. So
You came back.
right, that's right.
You went off on buying trips, those were fun
Well, yeah,
buying
they
trips.
really were. Oh, there's some awful stories and some fun stories. I'm going to tell you a bit of an awful story because it really still is boiling up in me. An antique dealer person, an adult, said to me, I'll tell you a good way, Eleanor, how to buy antiques. When you're out in the country, you pull in and ring a doorbell, and you say, is this where the bed or the table was for sale? And they say, no, because it wasn't.
Right.
I said, and then what do I do? He said, just start talking to them, and they'll have you in the house, and they'll probably sell you something. I said, I would never do anything like that. I still can't get over anybody having an admission like that, and
Yeah,
proud to say it.
right, right.
You know, that was kind of frightening.
Yeah.
Tell us about the hospital then.
Yes, that's one of my
All right,
notes.
go ahead.
There I go. About when I came up here in the late 45s, late 46, the hospital was on a street on the north side, and it still is there, and it's apartments now, and it was really amazing after coming from a city to see that for a hospital. It was lovely, but it just was really funny.
Yeah. a little unnerving, I'm sure.
I mean, no, not really. You know, when you're young and you're going to explore, and you go with the flow, and it never occurred to me not to. At any rate, not that I'm great, but I didn't. Anyway, about the 60s, late 50s and 60s, everybody knew we had to have a new hospital, and every person in town worked hard to get funds and raise money and solicit, and it worked. It worked, and we have a beautiful hospital up on the Lake Michigan, and it's now been changed 3 times. It's lovely. It's got everything that a person needs. If it's more than they need, we can go south or north, and we're covered, and we have great medical facilities here. Very, very up to date in Kansas City.
So what was your part in all that?
But busy, just busy. Well, in the beginning, we had women had a few meetings, and it was decided that, well, we should have a hospital guild and get people involved. And that was a project, and then I started a little gift shop in the hospital. And it was really funny because we could only get, someone donated a glass antique counter with storage, and they allowed us to put that in it was a new hospital, in the lobby, but it was a small lobby. And we didn't have a lock on it, and I had somebody come and put a lock on it, because we had to buy treasures and put it in it. And, well, so we lived in that little showcase and had storage in the back of the hospital rooms. And eventually we had to be moved, because we were doing quite nice things. We were helping the patients, we were helping the working people who needed a gift or two.
Sure.
And we were very, very scared of buying anything over $5, because after all, you just didn't have that kind of money. Today, we have a gorgeous gift shop, and there are many things, many times for over $5. But it grew and grew. Anyway, the hospital eventually gave us a closet in the lobby.
Yeah. Instead of the
We got rid of that case.
Got rid of the case.
Yes, and they put a window in the wall. So we were in the closet, but it was not a closet anymore now. It had a wall. And I really had a brainstorm. I said, let's put a little awning across the top so that you didn't, when you walk by a shop, unless somebody says, here I am,
Right.
you don't know it. And in a little lobby, so this worked beautifully. It was really fun. Today we have a marvelous buyer, and it was the worst part of having the gift shop was getting people to work. It was not the social thing in Charlevoix. There were many social events, but it was not the social thing to belong to the hospital. And it was really tough going. Our dues were $1 a year. It's pretty heavy. And it is now a very acceptable
To
organization,
volunteer.
and the functioning yearly ball is out at the castle. It's a grown-up affair now, and we buy pretty clothes to go to it, so it's turned out to be a real function.
Yeah, you turned it into a social function.
Well, it has. Everybody wants to be in it. It was really difficult at first to get people to get into the mood because there were so many other groups.
Sure.
We had clubs by the name of Shakespeare Club and Dickens Club. Now that was when I came here in late 45, and I never can understand why they had those clubs.
Well, what did they do with it?
Well, that was a good question because I was asked to be a member of the Shakespeare Club, and actually I'm not a literary giant, and I think in my mind, and I never did question anybody, the lessons, the meetings, the lessons were in people's homes because there weren't that many of us, and they were of various subjects, not Shakespearean only. And I think in those really early years, women got together and had clubs and had the subject of literature, good literature, and it was Shakespeare, and then one had it and the other one decided to have the Dickens Club. But I think they didn't have newspapers, they didn't have radios, and this goes way back in those days.
Yeah.
So that was my take of
How they formed.
of how they formed, and I think that does sound logical to me.
Yes, it does. I would agree.
But I really don't know that for sure, so that'll go on print though.
Well, I think too that women wanted to have some kind of
To be
intellectual
together.
stimulation.
In
too.
fact, I hadn't been married long, and I had lovely wedding gifts, and but it was wartime, and a lot of it didn't get delivered. And I went to few houses, and they had the most gorgeous china. Well, I didn't have it. I had the silver, but I didn't have the china. Anyway, I was really struck with that terrible thing. I'll never get over that.
Can you
Let's
tell us
see.
what it was like for the parties back when you first came in the 40s?
Tell you what?
The parties in the summertime when they had all the big parties.
Yes, you had lights. Whenever somebody had lights, you knew the cocktail party was at that house. There was a couple up on the north side that the gentleman strung the lights, and that, you don't know who I mean? Okay, yeah. Anyway, the social part were mainly the summer people, and there were in shifts of summer people because there are divisions. Hardly are there much of those things anymore, thank goodness. And but it was beautiful, and it still remains, and it's a mixture of everybody now, and it's lovely, and we don't necessarily have lights. And there are many social groups. It's not just the summer residents. And the one thing, I don't know what this time limit is, but the one thing I did want to say was, when we moved up here, this was a resort town, period. Strictly resort. And young people worked for the resorters. And when the resorters left, they either went on unemployment or they left town. The fishing industry also was dying at that time. So it was really a mix of things, but eventually, as time went on, the thing that I think brought the town together, and this is me, is the ski season.
Yeah.
Boyne Mountain got built and other little resort areas for winter. Charlevoix, summer people came back up, and our motels grew. And there were even buses, to my way of remembering, that took people over to Boyne Mountain. And so we became more of a year-round resort. And on weekends now, we'll have people that aren't going skiing or aren't going fishing and just coming up because we're here.
And I think now we also have snowmobilers too.
Oh, yes.
And,
And, you know, there's so
lots of-
many things that have brought us all to where we are today. And
Well, I would think it would have helped what your husband did, having a factory in town that was year-round employment. That was
it did, and
Oh.
his many of his good friends, and still mine, that worked in the factory were from Central Lake, little towns outside of Charlevoix, because really the younger people were gone. The farm people couldn't farm in the winter. They came in, and he had them seasonally. It just worked. It was he was a nice person.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
That's it.
I'm trying to think.
Have you turned off your camera?
Well, we can cut things out, so if we
Oh,
have to
go
cut-
for it.
Yeah.
But I do think that being strictly a resort town made a tremendous difference. We had Levinson's store in town. You know what we had. We had one or two good stores. It could stay open and maybe didn't, but it was a nice town. It was just great. Worked both ways for a while, and then it got better.
So how long did you have your business, the tin
Lady.
lady? How long did you have the tin lady?
Well, my husband passed away in '75, so I had it maybe 3 years,
Okay.
and I